it's another Friday and we're here. Can you believe this is episode 10, season 1? 10 episodes, Fridays, consistent. Wow. I can't believe when I started this journey, it was so daunting for me because I felt like, wow, what am I even going to be talking about? But 10 episodes down the line, we're here, almost at 900 downloads. Wow. And I'm grateful for every single one of you. And this is a win for me because being consistent, coming and just having a conversation, it makes me happy. So to have you listening every Friday has been awesome. And, this is a win for me. And speaking of wins, I've had wins this week that have had me roll on the floor, shout for joy, thank God, with an immensely grateful and filled heart. I felt validated. I felt, empowered. I felt that I can. And it also set me thinking. The wins also set me thinking because it requires that I work hard, I put in the work. I'm ready, don't get me wrong. I'm determined, I'm focused, I'm trusting God fully, blindly, implicitly, and entirely through this journey. Like, my faith is on 1,000, basically. And so it set me thinking. But the thinking is good thinking because thinking, better ideas, right? I need ideas for this journey. So, yes, that's been awesome. So, how are you? How have you been? How was your week? Do let me know. And I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, for the feedback, the comments, and what even overwhelms me is the thank yous. What are you thanking me for? I mean, the whole idea is to share, to open our eyes so we can see how we can help people who are being abused. We can see if we're in an abusive situation, if the abuser is even listening and wants to actually change. If they hear it, maybe they realize the effect that they have. It might trigger something, and that's the whole input. And if it's just one person that I'm able to save from feeling this huge amount of pain, it's fulfilling for me, So when you say thank you, it completely knocks me out and makes me so teary. I want to say thank you because you could have chosen not to press play, but you did. So thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful, and can you tell I'm emotional? Anyway, thank you. So if this is the first time you're listening, welcome. My name is Amma, and this is Conversations with Amma. Today, I want to talk about the effects of abuse on the victim. I mean, if you listen to the previous episodes, we've talked about what it is, the cycles, the different from the narcissist, all kinds of things. And I think if you've not listened, you can go back and listen to it. But all those things affect the victim in different ways. So today, that's what we want to get into. Some of these things we take for granted and just assume it as a character trait or a health, situation or something, And so we'll break it down into the physical, the social, the mental, the emotional, financial, spiritual, right? So when it comes to physical well-being of the victim, besides physical bruises and broken bones, which are very obvious, the other forms that affect the physical well-being of the victim present as stress-related issues like headaches, stomach upsets, sleep problems, skin rashes, eye twitches, shortness of breath, irregular menstrual cycles for women, chronic pain, sexual dysfunction in the case of men. The female is a narcissist psychic abuser or a nag or a terror wife or whatever. They run down their husband, they're ungrateful, they never appreciate anything, they're flirting with other men, so many things. And then they turn around, they gaslight the victim, they abuse them because obviously perhaps the man is an empath or also is coming from a codependent background or just as a kind, calm, warm person, right? So they take advantage. And so the man doesn't have any kind of urge for sexual intimacy. So when the woman needs a rise, there's a dip. Then they accuse the man of sleeping around. Same way for women. You get emotionally abused, verbally, sexually, whatever. Now, when your partner needs intimacy and you are not in the frame of mind or space, they accuse you of infidelity. Now, it doesn't even make any sense. That's like they are throwing a bomb at you and they are asking you, well, why are you shouting? Why are you screaming? That's what the abuser does. So it becomes difficult. There are fertility issues for women. When they are having issues with their menstrual cycle, they are trying to conceive, they are living in an emotionally unstable environment. Can you imagine what that is doing to their hormones? Like, can you imagine? Just think about it. So it's a very difficult place and space to be in. I mean, abuse can cause victims' brain cells to be damaged to the extent that they become forgetful and find it difficult to learn new things. They neglect self-care. They become very inconsistent with decision makings. I mean, things that you would do normally, just go into a shop and buy something or make a decision to go somewhere, becomes difficult because you are thinking about the ear in your, the voice in your ear, the reaction of your partner, and so many other things that people do normally. You have to second guess yourself and find it difficult to do. People who haven't been through this situation don't understand it. So they don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to go anywhere. They are tired all the time. So they even go into the shop and there's a choice between sardines and 2 brands of sardines. It becomes difficult for them. So they avoid those things, right? And it makes life really difficult. They stress about it. The stress level leads to increased anxiety, mood disorders. They might not even be aware that this is as a result of their abuse, right? So you see them today, they are nice to you, they smile with you. The next time you see them, they have a blank face and you're wondering, okay, what just happened? And then, I mean, there are some people who are like that anyway, who are not going through abuse. Yes, but don't be quick to judge when people do that, because sometimes the abusive partner will say, why did you speak to so and so? Why did you smile with them? So the next time that they see you, especially if the abuser is around, they are apprehensive because they know the backlash that might probably come or is associated. Because once they come and speak to you, bear in mind, the abuser is looking and is saying in his head, I told you not to speak to so-and-so person, you're being disobedient. And that comes with punishment. It could be silent treatment, it could be verbal abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical, it could be sexual, it could be financial. And the point is, sometimes it's not even instant. So you know that there's a build-up for that abuse that's going to come, right? So then you become anxious, you're walking on eggshells, you're depressed, you're sad because you have an expectation of the explosion. You should listen to my previous podcast on cycle of abuse and the effects and how the build-up happens, and you'll have an understanding of what I mean. So they have chronic pain, difficulty in breathing, eating disorders. It's either they're eating too much, they're eating too little, or they're not eating at all, because things that you find difficult, you find easy, become difficult for them, right? So that's just what it is. Now to mental issues. Abuse comes with post-traumatic stress disorder. PSTD, as we know it, is not just for soldiers or other people. We know that people who've gone through trauma, sexual abuse, kidnapping, accidents, grief, all have this. Now, can you imagine? Now, statistics say that 95% of victims of spousal abuse or partner abuse or intimate crime have they themselves lived in an abusive home growing up, so they are drawn to that pattern. 95%. So imagine living in a high conflict home, witnessing abuse, and then coming into a relationship where you think there's peace, there's calm. After a few months or years, the partner shows you those same patterns. Now your stress is heightened, the abuse is heightened, and you are living right back in your childhood again. Listen to this, right? You're living right back in your childhood again with all the ups and downs and the tension and the anxiety and all that stress. So this PSTD will come with things like flashbacks, right? Now, flashbacks will happen when there's a trigger. You watch a movie and someone is being abused, or there's a similar situation. The sentiments are the same. Even when you're healing or you've healed or you're in the process of understanding everything that abuse comes with and you know how to process your wounds, the flashbacks come not because you are dwelling on the situation, but because you identify, you empathize. You might watch a movie and cry. Everybody will be angry about it and upset about it, but you might cry in such a manner because it reminds you of your own pain and situations that you've been through. So those flashbacks can be triggered by watching something on TV, hearing a story, reading a book, hearing a sermon, hearing another person's story, and even seeing it again happen. So or just even when you're sitting down with your thoughts, the flashbacks happen, right? So whether you're healed, able to process everything, they happen. Then nightmares will affect you with PSTD because your mind, your subconscious is afraid, especially in the cases of very terrible abuse. So you have nightmares, you fight in your dreams and all kinds of things because your subconscious is fighting to survive, right? And I was using apps to calm me down, music and all kinds of things, especially when you've come from high conflict, homes and all of those things. So you have severe anxiety and you have untamed thoughts. You're thinking, okay, you're suicidal. What if I die? Will it make it better if in this situation I had kept quiet, or if I hadn't spoken to this person? Well, now all of those things make you feel guilty. You have self-guilt, you have self-shame, because you are attributing all those things onto yourself as the abuser wants, because they want you to feel guilty so that you act in a certain way. Now what you find is that as you are acting in a certain way, they are not satisfied. Because every time they need narcissistic supply, they need something. So every time, once you act in the manner in which they are asking of you, the dynamic shifts, right? So you realize that it's always escalating. So every time there's tension, there's long periods of sadness or depression, mind you, depressed people or sad people don't go about writing "I am sad" all the time. They still smile and get through their day and act as if everything is all right, but they go back home to soaked pillows, quiet times, inward looking and just drained and tired and in dismay, right? So they question themselves and their thoughts, and they elicit low self-esteem, even question their capabilities as a person. Now, can you imagine that what would do if they are working in an office, they drop the ball? If they're working in an environment, they forget to do something. And our environments are so harsh, right? Sometimes all they want is aesthetics and to see results. They don't even go down to see, this is uncharacteristic of you. What's going on? Is there anything? Do you need help? Oh, you dropped the ball, blah, blah, blah. It's either they get demoted or they get queried or something. I believe that every office should have a psychologist, or a therapist. I feel therapists should be for everyone, because we have a generation of people that some have grown up with narcissistic parents or lived in an abusive home And so they are struggling to belong. They are struggling to prove that they're capable. They are struggling to show themselves as, I can do everything I need to do, and being superhuman, not even living for themselves because they need to prove a point to someone who probably doesn't even care. But the point is, they don't even realize that there's a root, right? They don't realize that there's a root and there's a wound that they need to heal first. So they are out there looking for validation, satisfaction, people pleasing, whatnot, because they need to find that validation from outside without healing themselves first. So that's a topic for another day. But yes, so they might even become suicidal, make attempts, think it, and it may shock them sometimes, but it takes a strong person and a cycle breaker to take a stand and decide that enough is enough. Emotionally, they are apprehensive, they feel unworthy, they have a very strong inability to trust or open up to people. They might smile with you, laugh with you, whatever, but they know they are looking out to be hurt. So they never get disappointed because they feel like, well, this is normal, right? And so in the long run, they don't make any friends because they feel like, well, they're going to take advantage of me. But what they don't realize is that there's nothing wrong with them. Their wounds have created a certain path, and they are attracting the same kind of people, be it relationship, friendships, family, whatever. So what happens is the same kind of people flock on them, and then the wounds keep on repeating themselves because they are not dealing with the wound and they are not healing, right? So that's just what it is. Now, they get unmotivated and accept the status quo because they don't see a way out. This is what leads to severe feelings of hopelessness, which I believe leads to the suicidal thoughts and attempts. Because if you feel like there's nothing to live for, what's the point? Do you get what I'm saying? What's the point, right? Because you keep on being you, being the warm person you are, and then you keep on getting people who keep on hurting you over and over and over and over again. So then you feel like there is something wrong with me, but there isn't. You need to sit down, evaluate your wounds and the kind of person you are. Find a therapist. I will say this over and over again. Find a therapist and don't hide behind a facade. Now, the thing is, people go to a therapist and don't open up because they are afraid to confront what is, what the wound. They're afraid to. What they've done is they put a band-aid on it. Like ripping it off is painful, right? So they don't want to rip it off. They want to massage the band-aid and make it look like, everything is okay, we're fine and dandy, floating on air. But inside, the wound is festering. You get the picture? The wound is festering. If you've lived with someone in a home where your father was promiscuous all over the place, bringing in children and everything, you get married and you're always looking to see if your husband is up to something, it will cause problems in the home. So all those things are the reason why we need to we need to get a therapist and heal our childhood wounds. Some people got the pleasure of having a home that was healthy and stable and loving and everything. If you didn't have that pleasure, please heal your wounds. Don't take the wounds into a relationship and go and damage someone else, please, because they might even also have their wounds which they haven't healed, same as you, or they might not have any wounds and will have no understanding of even what the situation is. Because I didn't know about all these things. I had to learn, read. If I show you the amount of books and research that I've done for the past, I look back, I have been researching for years, right? But when iPhone came and I got my iPhone and transfer of notes, I realized that my notes on abuse started as far back as 2016, right? That was 4 years ago. And before then, I was doing research. So can you imagine how many years that I've read and come to these notes and conclusions, right? So it's very important to go into yourself and understand. Now, financial effect. Most victims are financially bankrupt because victims either have their money controlled by their abuser if they are earning, or are given money by their abuser at their whim. So it makes it difficult for the victim to meet their own needs or even think about an escape plan, right? Because it requires money. If you're going to have to fend for yourself for a couple of months or a year or whatever to find yourself back again. Now, abusers use money to punish you, right? Especially when they assume that you don't have any of your own. So they might either not give you any money for your upkeep if you decide that, you know what, I'm leaving until you fix yourself, or I'm not doing this again. Sometimes what people don't realize is by the time you say you're leaving, you've had it up to here already. Probably in your head, you're just thinking, you know what, I can't do this, So on the day that you take the courage, it takes a lot of courage to step out of an abuser's shadow. It's not an easy thing to do. It will leave you with sleepless nights, with tears, with pain, with nightmares. All these symptoms will come to the fore, especially in the first few 3, 4, 5 months of leaving, even up to a year more, until you are able to get yourself together and realize that it was not your fault. The abuser has a choice. They decide to be difficult and mean and selfish. It's got nothing to do with you as a person. When you understand that reality and you try to do the work and heal yourself and stop taking responsibility for their behavior, you will begin to have some sense of peace. It won't be constant. It will take a while, but you will find yourself again. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you that you will find yourself again. You just have to lean in, trust the process, heal. Understand your role also, because you see sometimes they test you with little things to get away, and then they get away with it till it becomes uncontrollable anymore, and then they get upset because you're not allowing them to get away with it, because you're questioning, how did we get here? And they are saying, why are you even asking me this question? I said, do this. It's an order, literally, so spiritually now, if the victim's faith isn't strong, they become disillusioned. They even question God, because if marriage is supposed to be a beautiful thing and ordained by God, why did they get such a partner who treats the marriage with disrespect, with disdain, and doesn't love them as Christ loved the church? Now, if Christ loved the church and died for the church, and the Bible enjoins spouses as men to die for their wives, or also enjoins women to live in humility with their husbands, and when you read Proverbs 31, the woman was a woman of strength and character and industrious and everything. Now, if you're not doing all those things for your husband, and they ask you for a little help, and your next instinct is to insult and be rude, you're causing them pain. Now, if your wife is as industrious as this Proverbs 31 woman and living and giving you all the help, and all you're doing is causing them pain, God says, the Bible says, I'm not the one who says it, right? God turns his eyes away from you and doesn't listen to your prayer as a man, because he says that it's a sin. Now, I always say I'm going to do abuse in the church. Now, when it comes to taking an abuser to a pastor or a Christian counselor, they will say things to you like, we understand, but you need to forgive him and pray. Pray for him in what way? That he will change, that he will not hate you, that he will not insult you. Now, mind you, this person has been sitting in church all this while, hearing about all the ways a man ought to treat their wife, or a wife ought to treat their husband, and is still doing it, is hiding under the shield, is denying things that they've done to their wife that are abusive, is blaming the victim and trying to blame other people in the process. I mean, does that look to you like someone who's willing to make a change that will affect the fortunes of the marriage positively? No, And even in those moments, look at the person I've described as a victim of abuse. You're telling them to pray. They're broken down. That's why there are things like intercessions. Other material women, they need your spiritual guidance. They need your emotional guidance. They need your physical guidance. They need your strength. But at that moment, most people are abandoned. All that people are interested in hearing is a story and saying, oh, go back. Oh, and then putting the, listen. Now, let's go back to forgiveness, right? If forgiveness is for the victim to heal, why the pressure? Why the pressure? Shouldn't you rally around the victim and show them warmth and love and guide them through the process of forgiving? They are not God to give instantaneous forgiveness. God is the only one capable of it. So we put pressure on the already pressured human being, and then we are forcing them to adapt and make changes when they are already finding a way to heal. It doesn't make any sense, So please, let's simmer down on that and not affect them spiritually. Look, it takes a strong woman to stand and forge their own path after abuse. It takes a strong person, it takes a strong man to stand and forge their own path after abuse, because it can completely break you down and destabilize you from your path. Completely. So, understand this. Abuse is a sin, is uncondoned by God, is despicable to God. It causes God to turn away his face from the abuser. So, if God is turning away his face from the abuser, how much more the victim? How much more the victim, right? You want the victim to still look at the abuser favorably when they are causing them pain, So, listen, abuse kills. Anything that can take away the life of another human being should not be treated with kids' gloves. No. Abuse kills the soul and the body of the victim. Abuse can cause the abuser to kill the victim. Abuse can cause the victim to kill themselves. Do you understand? Abuse can cause the victim to go crazy. Is this something that should be treated with kid gloves? I ask you. Think about it. As always, my name is Ama. Some of you call me MFA, some of you call me Doris, some of you call me Tinka, some of you call me M, some of you call me Tinkerbell, some of you call me MFA. Ama. Thank you for being in my space. Thank you for holding space for me to share my conversations with you. I appreciate you. As always, leave a review. Share it with someone who needs to be educated or hear it. If you suspect someone is going through abuse, let me have a conversation with them. Send them these conversations and, help them, be there for them and encourage them. They need you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you and I love you. Enjoy your evening or the day, whichever time that it is that you're listening. Thank you.